Hi, this is Amritan Sharora with ThePrint. We are here at the 17th edition of the Jaipur Literature Festival, and with me is Mr. Kai Bird, one of the authors of American Prometheus, the biography of Oppenheimer. Hello, sir. Thank you for taking out the time to speak to us.
Thank you.
Sir, you have an illustrious body of work, so many books that you've worked on, and other pieces that you've written as a journalist and as a columnist. So, apart from the Oppenheimer biography, I would also like to touch upon some of your other works. To begin with, you wrote a book on Jimmy Carter. Where you refer to him as the outlier and his presidency as the unfinished presidency. If I'm not mistaken, Carter was president in 77, and in December 77, when he was supposed to visit India, he made a statement ahead of the visit that he would try to change India's pro-Soviet orientation. Now we see that there has been this attempt or perhaps bid to decouple India, Russia on certain aspects, defense, barring defense, of course, where we're still somewhat dependent on Russia. How do you think? What are your views on this?
Well, this was in 1977. The Cold War was still raging as such, and the Soviet Union still existed, and those were very different times. India was then a leader of the non-aligned nations, the neutral pack. And so Carter was playing a little bit of sort of Cold War politics there, trying to encourage India to be less neutral and more pro-Western and more critical of the Soviet Union. But, Carter was not a Cold Warrior in a conventional sense. His foreign policy, his instincts in foreign policy were all based on his desire for supporting human rights. So he was being critical of the Soviet Union because it was a repressive regime. It didn't have free press, it had many political prisoners. So he was trying to weaken the Soviet empire through diplomacy about human rights. So
my second question is, of course, about the Oppenheimer biography. I'm sure you must have been, people must have asked you thousands of questions about what motivated you to write it, and you've also answered them in quite a lot of detail. My question is on one particular aspect of it. As the movie's success has highlighted certain aspects of Oppenheimer's life, I would like to ask you to share with the audience one particular aspect, which is the relationship that he shared with Albert Einstein. The book portrays this excellently, and so does the movie, if I might add. Can you share with the audience how you would describe this relationship for some of the audience members who might not have read the book or seen the movie?
Yeah, Albert Einstein was, of course, a world-renowned physicist who invented relativity theory, and Oppenheimer was a slightly younger, the next generation, who encountered the new theory, the new science of quantum physics in the 1920s. And Einstein, although Einstein's work paved the way for quantum, he and Oppenheimer actually argued about the implications of quantum physics. And Einstein was doubtful that it worked. He famously once said, "Oh, God wouldn't play dice like that with the universe." Whereas Oppenheimer thought this was that quantum was clearly provable and it did work, and it explains the small world of electrons and atoms and the uncertainty in our world. But they were friends, they were colleagues, and they knew each other in the 1930s. And then, after World War II, Oppenheimer became director of the Institute for Advanced Study in Princeton, New Jersey. And as such, he was Albert Einstein's boss because Einstein was a lifelong fellow at the Princeton Institute. And there they were colleagues and friends, and they admired each other.
So to build on this subject, you mentioned in previous interviews that one of your motivations for writing the Oppenheimer biography was also to highlight how the Manhattan Project ushered in the atomic age. We see today that much of the geopolitical order is at a knife's edge due to the very realistic possibility now of rogue nations, so to speak, such as North Korea and some other nations getting nuclear weapons capabilities. How do you view this uh, this culmination of the atomic age that has brought us to this stage?
Yes, it's very worrisome. I think we've become too complacent living with the atom bomb, and we should remember that Oppenheimer in 1945, at the very beginning of the atomic age, warned everyone that the smallest, the poorest country in the world could build these weapons. There were no secrets. It's not that expensive, and therefore it's a much more dangerous world. And so he was predicting the world we live in today, where North Korea has an atom bomb, and India and Pakistan and Israel, and maybe tomorrow Iran and England and France. I mean, it's a world that he predicted and he feared, and he was lobbying the politicians in America and elsewhere to not rely on these weapons for defense, because he always viewed them as weapons for aggressors, for terror. And, he was a prophet, but a prophet ignored.
Certainly. So my next question is about a book of yours that is lesser talked about, but I know that you have a keen interest in South Asia. The book that I'm referring to is Bangladesh: An Unfinished Revolution, which is some decades ago. I'm sure you must have followed the elections in Bangladesh, where Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina returned to power for another continued term. But the opposition there boycotted the elections, alleging that they were not being held freely and fairly. What are your views on this?
Well, I think on the one hand, it's good that elections are still being held in India, in Bangladesh, and even in Pakistan. But democracy is difficult. Democracy is difficult in America these days. But we're always trying to refine it, make it better, to make it work better. And I think it's unfortunate that in Bangladesh we have such a divisive politics, where the opposition is boycotting elections, and the party in power is being is not acting like the opposition is a democratic partner. And that's most unfortunate. It's not conducive to civic dialogue and real democracy.
So before we wrap up, my last question for you is: given your illustrious body of work, readers and history enthusiasts from around the world are looking at what you would approach next. Do you have something in mind? A personality, perhaps, whose biography you would want to attempt, or something that's already in the works?
Yes, I'm working on a new biography for the last year. I haven't really started to write, but it's a biography of an American lawyer named Roy Cohn, who was the chief counsel as a young man to Senator Joseph McCarthy in the 1950s, and then became a lawyer for all 5 mafioso families in New York City. And then in 1973, he met a young real estate developer in New York City named Donald Trump. And he became his lawyer, and he taught Trump everything he knew about how to deal with the press, how to always sue your opponents in court, never to game the system, to never apologize, how to never pay your taxes. He was a very nefarious. He was sort of the working title of the book is American Scoundrel, and it's a colorful story, and I hope it will explain the divisive politics in America under Donald Trump.
We really look forward. I'm sure readers like me who followed your work over the years look forward to your next book. And thank you so much for taking out the time to speak with us, sir.
Thank you for having me.